With peace in the air in Israel, I can't imagine, or organised or effected by Biden, I can't imagine Trump is going to allow the possibility of grabbing peace from Russia to pass him by. So that diplomatic drama is almost certain to be unfolding over the next few weeks as well, even before Trump gets into power. Trump, with his perennial foil, Putin, has all the makings of a good global soap opera, and this proposed meeting that is being touted on the internet in Switzerland looms, aiming to end the bloody quagmire that's war in Ukraine. Will it be peace in our time? Yet another chapter of posturing and political brinkmanship, or will it be something that might even be a positive? Will it be a Molotov-Ribbentrop pact with Europe caught in the middle, or will it be the start of a new age of peace? President-elect President Donald Trump, a self-proclaimed maestro of negotiation, has made no secret of his ambitions to end the Ukraine war within an implausible 24 hours, which has now already been adjusted by his spokespeople. Now he generously concedes it might take 6 months. Trump's approach, predictably unconventional, hinges on recalibrating US policy, and his team, led by incoming National Security Advisor Mike Waltz, acknowledges the futility of expelling Russian forces from all Ukrainian territory, including Crimea. Waltz's statement to ABC describes the conflict of World War I style meat grinder and hints at a willingness to entertain territorial concessions. Critics, particularly in Kyiv, worry that Trump's eagerness for a swift resolution could force Ukraine into an unfavourable settlement. One cannot help but wonder, will Trump's famed art of the deal reduce Ukraine's sovereignty to a bargaining chip, to a form of reality TV, as the time ticks on the end of the episode? Meanwhile, Vladimir Putin, ever the chess player, approaches these talks with his own conditions. Foremost among them is a NATO guarantee that Ukraine will never join the alliance, a demand tantamount to asking the West to rewrite its entire security doctrine. Complicating matters further, a fraction of Kremlin insiders reportedly urges Putin to intensify his war efforts rather than sue for peace. This internal dissent highlights the precariousness of any potential deal, particularly if Putin is no longer in charge or no longer alive. Yet the allure of a Trump-brokered settlement may appeal to Putin's pragmatism. Sanctions targeting Putin's oil and gas sector have tightened the economic screws to the extent that the country can barely function and butter is scarce, while battlefield setbacks have underscored the limitations of Moscow's military. If Trump offers an off-ramp that preserves Russia's territorial gains in Ukraine, will Putin bite, and will Zelensky acquiesce? All this goes back also to the reason for Putin's invasion in the first place. Putin, I've been talking to various people who still persist in the idea that Putin was responding to NATO aggression. I think NATO is no saint, by the way, but there is a Rubicon which is crossed here, and that is the invasion of one state by another. And Putin invaded a sovereign state. Now, it doesn't matter what that sovereign state has been doing in the past. I don't think Ukraine's past history, recent history, has been particularly edifying. And Zelensky's election as a candidate who is not tainted by corruption and vows not to be corrupt, this is something threatening in a way to the way Russia works, because Russia works on corruption. I've seen it, and it's demonstrable. This is how Russia functions, and so to make it function otherwise, to make it function in a form of diplomacy and realism, will be difficult. I'm sure Putin felt threatened by Zelensky's appointment and by Zelensky's clear talking and reluctance to kowtow to Putin's charisma. I'm also sure that Putin was threatened by Zelensky's stated plans to renegotiate the Minsk treaties. So, where do we go from here? If Switzerland, the paragon of neutrality, stands ready to host this high-stakes tete-a-tete and is prepared to ignore the ICC call for Putin's arrest, its serene Alps may provide the perfect backdrop for diplomacy, though one wonders if the Trump-Putin dynamic requires more than fondue and fresh mountain air. Slovakian Prime Minister Robert Fico has also offered his country as a venue, but whether the Slovakian hills could provide the same gravitas as Switzerland's diplomatic legacy, particularly given Fico's dalliance in Moscow, remains questionable. Europe watches with bated breath. Leaders like Emmanuel Macron and Mark Rutte are acutely aware that US support for Ukraine is the linchpin of their collective strategy. And Trump's potential forces, no less, introduces Trump's potential forcing the idea of a freeze in this conflict with a demilitarized zone, patrolled perhaps by Britain and European armies. That introduces new complexities. And is this solution merely a plaster on a festering wound, or is it a genuine first step towards a lasting peace? Because a lasting peace is about restoring the relationship between Ukraine and Russia. And Trump's criticism of Vladimir Zelensky as the greatest salesman on earth has not endeared him to Kyiv. A US aid freeze would leave Ukraine vulnerable, with its leverage in peace talks severely diminished. Trump's European allies, scrambling to preserve unity, may find their resolve tested by an American-first strategy that prioritizes expediency over principle. And then there's the problem that Trump has got his eyes set on Greenland, and there are parallels. If Trump wants Greenland, Putin wants Ukraine, well, there we are. We have to look at these wider global ramifications. A Trump-Putin deal could signal a shift in global power dynamics, potentially sidelining NATO, emboldening autocrats worldwide. It also raises uncomfortable questions about the erosion of Western ideals in the face of realpolitik. Would a quick peace in Ukraine merely set a precedent for territorial aggression elsewhere? And we know that exists. This proposed meeting is fraught with risks and possibilities, and if successful, it could halt the bloodshed and lay the groundwork for stability. But if mishandled, it will legitimize territorial conquest and sow discord among Western allies. As Trump himself might say, we'll see what happens. For now, all eyes must be on Switzerland and on two leaders with more in common than one might have cared to admit.